Hello and welcome to another episode of Room 420. This is Gary Miller. Today I am joined by my good friend Jack Anderson, host of the Don't Miss This podcast, actor, improver, personal trainer. Yes.
Couple notches on the belt there.
Belt. Great beard too.
Hey, thank you, sir.
Great beard, dude. Thanks for coming, dude. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know. Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be a part of a real podcast here. Not that DMT's not a real podcast, but like we were talking, we do it in a basement, right? So coming downtown, bringing a drink, it feels good. I feel like a grown up here.
I think the first time we had you in here, because you guys were doing our Veriheal content, and then we told me, they do the DMT podcast, and they're like, wait, DMT podcast.
Yes.
Don't miss this.
Yeah, we've run into a lot of problems with that. People seem to expect us to talk about dimethyltryptamine, and actually, which we don't, which we will do eventually, but that's a life-changing ask, right? So right now, we're in the preparation phase. We're in the part where we're fucking everything up. We're documenting that. Then we'll do DMT. We'll see the aliens and the jesters and all the weird shit, and then we'll document that total back half. But really, the main problem we're running into marketing-wise right now is there's a Christian podcast called Don't Miss This that is booming, and they're not even that consistent, right? So they have our name, and we are right now, hey, shout out, we're third when you type in DMT on Apple Podcasts. That's tight, but we're behind one other one, and then this Christian one that people from the Christian one have commented on our podcast talking about how we're spreading the word of the Lord. And I'm telling you, Gary, that is the opposite of what we're doing. That we could not be any more sacrilegious on our podcast. But also, we're getting 5 stars, so it doesn't really matter. Hey, rate and review, please.
I want to know the other one. Is it like Duncan Trussell?
Yeah, some random.
I know he does a lot of stuff like that. So you guys have never done DMT?
No. I've gone through. I've done shrooms a number of times, but that's about as far as I've gone. Not because I don't want to, but it's hard to get that stuff. Life happens. I'm banking on getting rich and having all the time in the world to just like lick frogs and do ayahuasca trips, and like I'm ready for that in my life. I just don't have the means now, you know. But
go gigging for frogs. There's got to be the right ones,
dude. I mean, in the Amazon rainforest, you're either gonna die or you're gonna trip, and either way, it's gonna be a ride. I'm telling you.
Where did the licking frogs thing? I'm so curious about that one.
How did that? This is the thing that I have questions about every ancient civilization. How did they know? I mean, how did they know to, one, lick the frogs, two, which frog to lick, which means probably 10,000 people licked the wrong frog and died, and like one licked it and was like, oh, guys, lick this thing, and they did, and they were like, we gotta lick all the frogs, and then another 10,000 died, but then the next guy found one that was DMT, and it's like, I think that's the process, which is unfortunate. But it's cool to be the guy that wins the lottery and licks the frog, doesn't die, and then becomes a enlightened god about 15 minutes later. You know?
Do you think there's like kind of a gene, like if there's a bunch of people like the 10,000 who died who are like, we just can't handle this.
You can't do it.
But then there's one who's like, oh, I can.
You know,
and they keep making babies, and then all of a sudden we're all able to do drugs,
which is crazy, right? Yeah. If those which I think that is equally the case, as much as there's the idiot that just was like, oh, I like red frogs, and he licked the red frog instead of the blue one and died, right? I think it's like 50-50. Like some people can't handle it, and some people, God was just like, they should not handle this, and they just like, it's the wrong frog, and I'm not going to stop them, So
there's like the Don't Miss This podcast people, and then the Don't Miss This podcast
Yes,
people.
Exactly. And we're really trying to suss out those two right now. We're trying to see if we ourselves are Don't Miss These People or Don't Miss These People. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Have you ever come close, like, you said you've done mushrooms. Have you done anything else that's like psychedelic that's been good for you?
I would like to. I had an opportunity to do salvia, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's like 7 minutes. And then the guy who was telling me about it was like, yeah, the last time I did it, I just like blacked out, and I was driving with a tomato in my hand. And I was like, we're not going to do this then. Like that is, I don't know you very well. And if in 7 minutes I'm going to be on the freeway holding some sort of random fruit, I don't think I want that experience with you. It's who you do the drugs with as much as which drugs you do. Yeah. That's what I've learned. And that's like LSD. I'd love to do LSD. I'd love to, all these different things. But yeah, I had kind of a run where like, I wouldn't say I had like bad enough trips to stop doing it, but I kind of had back-to-back bad trips, right? Which is an interesting experience because there's the scary side of it, the paranoia, the blah, 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 like all this shit you go through, right? But also there's the interesting process of you're so vulnerable, you're so exposed, right? And again, this is just psilocybin. This is, if we're talking about psychedelics, this is like green bunny hill runs, right? But sometimes you take too much. You're having too much fun, and then you eat too much blue tip penis, and you're like, oh fuck, that was the name of the mushroom, by the way.
Blue tip penis.
They look like blue tip penises. Yes, they did. That's exactly what they look like. So I was like, okay. My brain is spinning. I am, I don't want to be doing this right now, but what else am I going to do? I can't stop it, right? And I don't know. You kind of hit 2 points, right? Either you're like, I'm fucking done with this. This is a terrible experience, which is reasonable because you've just food poisoned yourself into a panic attack. That, if we're looking at the biology of it, is exactly what you just did. But if you're an idiot like me and you like the wavy things that happened before and you want to do it again, you're going to explore this and make sure that it doesn't ruin the experience, right? So the 2 times I did it were like tough and they were long, and honestly, they were less like scary and more just like, oh fuck, like a big one. The first one was doing, Sam and I have been trying to write comedy together for over 10 years now, right? We started sophomore year of high school when I would drive him home from football practice, and it has continued. But through that, being guys who had no idea, we weren't in theater, we didn't write, like we were in English class and we hated it, right? We played football and like we worked hard, but like it was mostly just to dick around with our buddies, Yeah. And like, so we were like, oh, this would be fun, this would be cool. And like, it's evolved into something we want to do for our career. But like through that process, there was the phase of like, oh, we're going to be the workaholics guys, and we're just going to do a web series and we're going to become famous, right? Or, oh, we're going to, write this great script. Oh, we're going to bring our buddies in and we're going to have like this whole crew, right? Which is kind of what we're still trying to do. But now we're doing it with comedians, which is fantastic, versus trying to manufacture this lifestyle that people you look up to have somehow stumbled into, and you're like, oh, that's the way to do it, instead of, oh, that's the way they did it, right? And I'm going to go through this path in a completely different way. It took me a long time to get to that place, and it was through that first bad trip that I kind of got there, where I was like having a good time and like, whoa, everything. But also I had a girl just text me and dump me, right? It wasn't like a long-term thing, but that's never a fun thing to do. But after you've eaten those dirt-tasting fucking mushrooms, you can't spit them back up, right? Once you've drank the orange juice to get the vitamin C that kicks in the extra little bit of a trip, you're not going to puke that up. That's like $80 right there, right? So I'm like, fuck, we're going to have to go through this. And the beginning was fine. I forgot about that text, forgot about all this stuff. And then it started like happening where like the visuals stop and you have this like back half where you're very, very high essentially, and you're like chilling. And normally that's, for me, the best part, because that's where you talk, that's where you kind of share what you thought or saw or whatever it was, and you laugh a lot during that period. But for me, that's kind of in a darker place, quite literally. It was like super dark where we were, and then I started thinking about that, and then we were watching This Is the End, which, if you've seen that movie, Seth Rogen, James Franco, Danny McBride, there's one scene where those three are, I think they're digging, they're trying to get to the water, whatever, and then James Franco comes out, starts yelling at Danny McBride for jacking off all over his magazine. And I'm watching that and like just on the hardest come down as shrooms. And I'm watching and I'm like, these two are improvising this whole thing. And it's fucking hilarious. And it's like so much chemistry and time. And it's like, what? This is what I want to do. This right here. I'm watching my like dream, the thing that I like, I would do it for free. No doubt. And then I start thinking, oh, fuck, I don't know how to do it. Like I start going, oh, shit. Like, I mean, like I do improv kind of, this was before classes and everything, right? So I was like, I think I can do it because I'd like to do it, but I don't think I can. And then I started like going like, oh, fuck, what am I doing? Wasting all this time wanting to do this. Blah, 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 blah. You go down that rabbit hole. And then I stopped and I was like, well, you want to do it. You never have done it. So why don't you just fucking try it and humble yourself a little bit and take classes? Sure enough, take classes. 5-6 years later now, I've done 10 levels of improv classes. I love improv. I'm confident that I can do improv. Granted, COVID kind of threw a wrench in that a little bit, but that is what it is. We're getting back to it.
Improv.
Hey, that's why we do what we do, right? So it's exactly, you got to improv life, right? When shit comes your way, you got to say yes and move forward with it, which I think I did through the pandemic, which was great. And going back to the shrooms, I attribute that all to that bad trip because I was like, oh, fuck, like, it's not that I can't do it. It's that I was so focused on the external goal of doing it, right? I was like, oh, I want to be the Workaholics guys. I want to be the It's Always Sunny guys. So like, if I just want it enough, it'll happen. But this is the joke about like visualization where like it works, but then you have to write the script. You have to do the auditions. You have to build the business. You have to work it, you have to go to the gym, you have to start the diet, whatever it may be, whatever you're visualizing is great, but you're not going to manifest it just by thinking about it, right? That's where like so many, like, I haven't read The Secret, so I can't really speak to it too much, but like my understanding of that is it explains like the face value of it really well, which is great, but it doesn't talk about the back half, which is the work, and like not just even the work. It's not like you got to hustle and all that. I mean, yes, but you got to love it, right? You got to be able to say, this is something that it's worth spending every moment of my life to do this, right? Even if I'm not making money, even if I'm spending a shit ton of money to do it, but I'm getting better and like noticing, I would have never had the courage to think, or just not even the courage, like the wherewithal to think about that had I not been faced with that reality. Like it really was, my greatest fear was going like, oh, you're not good enough to write or act or do comedy. And then I was faced with that and I was like, I don't give a shit. I will be someday, right? And that was such a huge moment in my life because I'd never really done that before. Like football, I had always been like, oh, I'm going to be a great football player. And then adversity would come and I'd be like, I just like the game and my friends actually quite a bit. I like working out. That's great. But like this whole, because I trained with a guy who was like former Bronco, NFL player, all that. He was great. You know, it was like a group class, but I trained with a lot of the best players in Colorado at that time because that was kind of his shtick, right? I make the best football players in Colorado. Most of the kids I train go to college football. That's what I wanted to do. And then I started training with these guys and I was like, wait, I'd have to spend my life with these people? No fucking way is that happening. You were in a college locker room. Now, granted, there's a lot of great guys that go play college football, but like the best of the best, those guys you're competing with, I mean, these guys are like, because I've always been a man of grandeur. So I was like, oh, I play football, so I'll go to the NFL. Oh, I like basketball, so I'll be in the NBA. I like comedy, so I'm going to be a stand-up.
Steps in the middle.
I'm a dreamer, man. I can't help it, And I'm like, it would be so cool, right? So then my brain starts going down that path and whatever. And I started thinking about that with those guys in football. And this came back to the trip where I was like, well, that was a big moment for me. I was like, I love football. Like that game itself is like maybe my biggest passion outside of the things I'm trying to do for a job, right? But if I do that and I get my ass kicked every day, I'm just not good enough. I'm just not that. I'm not that. And I was like, I didn't have the drive to do that. I had the drive to stay healthy post-football and like love the sport. I know more about the sport now. It's that whole like, oh, if I could play today, right, I would. But
with our adult brains,
are like exactly our understanding of, the mistakes we made in the past versus like having to make them and things. And I was like, okay, that I realized it's a passion, but it's a passionate hobby in a lot of ways. And it taught me a lot of things and I grew a lot and I was very okay and at peace with moving forward with that. But then I felt this huge vacuum of meaning. And I remembered I was like, oh, I want to be an actor when I was a kid. And I was like, well, I do want to be an actor, but I really like writing. Like I really like the creative process. And I started going down that, going back to the shroom trip. That's where I realized, like in that moment, because of that terrible trip and those 2 hours of just like freaking out and just going like, oh fuck, I'm fucked. Everything's wrong. I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. I'm going to be fucking a loser who can't make people laugh about jerking off. I'm going to be a clown, dude, but not the funny clown, the loser clown. And then I was like, you're the only one that can decide that. And I got that through that psilocybin trip, right? So that's where I like see the value of DMT and ayahuasca and LSD and all these things. Again, it's just means and time now, really. Yeah. But like, it's so hard to say that I'm like, everybody should do mushrooms. I believe everybody should. I wouldn't say you must. I would never force that on somebody because also not everybody should do pot, right? Because some people just have brains that are going to be, like we were talking about, they're going to be triggered and paranoid and freaked out. It's going to be a terrible experience. But if you can get through that, it's like kind of a cheat code to the hero's journey in writing, right? Where like, instead of having to go on this giant quest, that's why they call them visions and journeys and quests and guides, and you have all these different associations with the process of psychedelics, because in whether it's the 7-minute salvia trip to the 2-day ayahuasca fucking cleanse where you shit and puke your brains out, literally, it's, this shortened version of, instead of having to go to the wilderness and lose your father and kill the bear and slay the king and take over the kingdom and blah, 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 blah. You can do that because obviously we're not all going to get to live that out, but there's like something about that, whether it's the stories we were told as children or the like just kind of natural way we came up where we had to split firewood every day. We had to cook every meal. We had to carry all our water. Like those little victories we no longer really have. So we're kind of looking for that meaning a lot in life. And that's what psychedelics can kind of do is that at the end of the day, I don't think we should have to go back to carrying our water and, walking 6 months to get to the other side of the state and all that shit. Like, I like what we got going on now. Anybody that says it's the worst time to be alive is a fool. Go live in the fucking Genghis Khan empire and tell me how fun that was, Like, we need to appreciate what we have, but also have the ability to connect with what got us here, right? Which I think we've lost a lot. And I think psychedelics force you to remember that in a lot of ways. If you're open to that message, if you're open, and the same with pot and even alcohol, like to a certain extent, it's the excess. That's where we're like, oh, this is fun, so we need to do more of it versus like I would never trip at a party ever. Like people that trip at parties, hey, more power to you. But to me, that is not what it's for, right? It's a tool. It's right? I mean, it's definitely like, it's fun. It's crazy. Like it is like extroverts thrive, right? But I'm an introvert, right? When I trip, I go very inside. Yeah. I laugh a lot for sure, but it's a lot of what's going on here or what I'm seeing around me. And that like a party, if I have to react, I'm going to maybe panic or something like that.
Very experiential, depending on who you are.
Exactly. And that's where I'm like, don't judge the substance or the tool right away. And don't judge yourself just in like, not in the least critical judgment way, in the most like analytical, like, what does this do to me? What is this experience? What if I just took like one hit of weed? Everybody's like, I smoked a bowl, it was terrible. I'm like, take one hit. You're going to get high off one hit, especially if you haven't done it in a long time, right? But it's people are like, oh, I can smoke the whole joint. Oh, God. Oh, see my ancestors. Like that kind of shit. It's like, you didn't have to get there. Like, I don't even really get there. I get there if I need to get there, and I'm going to have fun. But I've also smoked pot for like 10 years now.
I think part of that, too, is like you don't know the serving size with cannabis or other drugs where like one beer.
Yes.
Is very different than one joint.
Well, this is why legalization is important, is
research.
That, we need to understand this stuff. And it's like, maybe certain other industries will take a financial hit. And it's like, well, it sucks for you. Like you did that to other industries in the past. You should let business continue instead of build regulations and laws that prevent progress and instead build your own business where, anyway, that's
even the business of enforcing it and prohibition. I mean, there's a business there.
It's exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're in that business, there's a lot of money to be gained, right?
Like, I don't want to lose my business of putting drugs off the street.
Exactly. But it's also like, imagine, like if you can find the human side of you, the non-money survival side and go like, well, I mean, what can this do for humanity? Yeah. Oh, I've never tried this before. All the experiences I've had with it are in a negative legal sense, right? Whether it's myself, I got in trouble, or I've been judging people that use it. I think it's illegal. I think it's bad. I think it's the devil's lettuce, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Like that's whatever. That's your past. That's your life. You're figuring it out and you're going through, but like try it. If you are so confident in your anti-stance, then you should be able to have a conversation about it, not demonize it. You know what I mean? Like it's like, that's when you know somebody doesn't really know what they're talking about, is when they have that like extreme negative reaction, especially emotional reaction, where it's like, okay, you're doing this because of things you've been told. Like there's no way if you actually like, if this didn't have that level of power over you, you wouldn't be reacting this way. Like your, human lizard brain reaction right now and the way you're speaking to me about this is telling me everything I need to know about your experience with it. And as I get older, something that, I mean, whether it's cannabis or just in life, something else I find really important is talking to people that have experience. Yeah. People that have opinions with no experience tend to be the hardest people to talk to because they are literally throwing something at you without an understanding. So not only can they not have an argument about it, they're probably just super set in their ways about what they're fighting about, right? So if they think pot is bad, and you try to say, well, hey, and they think it's just devil's lettuce, bad. Like, oh man, everybody that smokes it should be in prison. That's what they think. Okay, well, I'm going to disagree with you firmly. And I'm not going to be rude about it, no way. But I also know that if that's the way you approach me with it, no matter what I say, you're not going to really listen to me, right? Because I think we're all kind of kinesthetic learners at the end of the day. We're like, we need to touch it. We need to see it. We need to see that it is not going to kill you. Like, I think half the reason is that people think it's, whether it's morally, spiritually, or physically, it's going to kill you in some way, right? When, in my experience, I cannot disagree more. Since I've started consuming cannabis, my life has only gotten better creatively, health-wise, my anxiety. I used to have panic attacks all the time. And now not.
What were those like?
They were interesting, right? Because I've talked to people that had like real deal, like, or do have real deal panic attacks, right?
Your panic attacks are relative.
Exactly, yeah. And I like the quote that like the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, right? And that's where these panic attacks were definitely like, I guess it's where like you think something, right? And you cannot control where that thought is going. And I do meditation, I did all these stuff, and I do really find a lot of value in that. But also there's this level of like, there's the 3 layers of the brain, right? There's your id, your superego, and your ego, and each kind of have a different level of control. Like that's something I think is so important. And like in my fitness, I try to tell people, train the human animal. Because if you're aware of the animal within you, then you can have better control of it when it kicks in. So I learned with my panic attacks, it was like the lizard monkey brain going, like when that girl texted me, right, and I tried to make it work, and then it didn't get like weird, but like it clearly was not going to work for me, right? And then I start falling down this rabbit hole of, oh fuck, I'm going to be alone forever, right?
Your brain immediately went to that.
And then it gets worse and worse and worse, right? And for me, what it was like, oh, I just got to be alone, right? So I just like go and drive for 3 hours, listen to music really loud, not hear a word of the music, right? And just be stuck in that thought and like kind of buying into what I was saying, but also like, just going like, why can't I stop this? That was really more the frustrating part. Was I was like, like everything logical and reasonable within me is like, you just gotta calm down, dude. Like 10 breaths, whatever, hang on. And I had smoked pot and whatnot before, but it was like just to hang out with friends and have a good time. This is when I started doing it more on a regular basis, and it's not that I don't get anxious anymore. Yeah, I get anxious all the time about all things, but I also think anxiety means you care. That was another big part of it. It was like, when I'm freaking out like this, it's not good. Like, it's not productive, and it's not helpful, and in fact, it often is detrimental, but it's also not coming from a bad place. Like, this is not like a fundamental, like, rotten issue within you that you think, oh, I'm falling apart, I'm failing, I'm this, and then I'm a loser, whatever it may be. It's a reaction to something that matters to you, right? And that's what's nice about pot is you can smoke and you can just calm down a little bit, right? You can watch a movie, and instead of, like, constantly thinking through the movie, it may actually catch you, and you may kind of lose yourself for a little bit. And then your heart rate slows down. I mean, it's just the central nervous system, right? Or parasympathetic nervous system, really. That ability to, and this is the same with my clients, right? And weirdly enough, being a personal trainer was kind of a weird twist in my life, but it's been definitely the most valuable thing I've ever done because I get to, for 4 to 8 hours a day, I get to see people and I get to go like, okay, how can we control this machine that feels so out of control all the time? Like even today, parking, I dropped my credit card, I spilled my Monster, and I dropped the receipt. And I was like, what? What do you want? To my hands. Like, I was like, what are we doing right now, right? Yeah. And again,
amazing, like those little things that set you off. Like you catch your belt loop on a doorknob.
Exactly. Like and it's like, how was I not aware of this? How is this stupid thing ruining my day now, right? And again, a lot of my job, I like to think, really is, get people ripped and get them wherever they want to be, right? Lose 20 pounds, but also have that 1% more control of those moments, right? Like that's going to happen. I have shaky hands. It was windy, it was whatever. Like I'm going to drop the credit card. But there's also a way where I can... if I need to like bend over and pick something up, I can do it without throwing on my back and shit like that. And I think for me, breaking that down, seeing how to do that, teach the body how to do that for every type of person, every age, whatever, that was great. But also learning what the breath meant to that process, right? Breath is probably the most important thing I teach once people learn how to start moving, because that's how you control things. If you just think of your breath, like I always explain, like a squat, right? Yeah. When you go down, you're putting tension on every square inch of your body. And that includes your organs, right? If you're breathing correctly. If you're not, then maybe you're not. And that's actually to a detriment, because at the bottom of that squat, you want as much tension as possible. You want to be braced and controlled. You want all your muscle. You don't want anything compensating or being underdeveloped or whatever, ideally, right? And with that breath, if you do an out breath, if you go and then you go down, and you've lost all that tension in your core. I always say it's like an oxygen tank. You open it up above ground and right, throw it in the water. It's just a big heavy piece of metal, right? Yeah. And and it's going to be down there forever, but you're going to be down there forever because you're going to probably hurt yourself, or you're not going to do it the right way. You're going to build compensation. It's going to be a problem. Versus if you put that oxygen tank underwater, then you open it up, all that pressure that's been built within that canister is going to explode to the top, and it's going to, cause a massive air bubble, whatever. I don't really know what happens in water, but you get what I mean. Yeah. In the squat, if you take that big in breath, you get all that tension, you fill the canister, you go to the bottom of the ocean, you hold, and then right when you need it, when you need to use as much energy and momentum as possible, you can use that breath. It's not cheating. It's not like you're not using the muscles, right? Yeah. You're just strategically teaching your body how to function in high, intense levels of stress, which is physically great. I think everybody could use a little bit more of that, even myself, but also mentally. Like it's the same shit, right? And it's the same with, and that's what cannabis is kind of nice for. Cannabis forces that breath. Like it slows you down. Again, if you're not having a panic attack, which I always have to say, you can have a panic attack doing it. It could be a terrible experience. I don't know. But for me, when I have conquered, any sort of, mental health or whatever it may be, it was because I could just breathe better and I could just slow down and I could laugh more, or I could be there with my friends and I could just put away that bullshit that was in the back of my mind. And the older I get, thank God, I'm starting at least now to go, okay, these things, they may matter to some extent, but right now, what can you do to change? It's that whole Buddhist thing. What can you do now? Oh, nothing. Then just be, right?
Being present.
Exactly.
So you're talking about your breath.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the beauty of, at least, one of the many beauties of pot to me, is that it kind of just gets me there. Instead of, I always say it makes you focus on your focus. So if you're having a panic attack, if I'm having a panic attack, I can look at it and I can go, okay, this is my choice to be thinking. This isn't happening to me necessarily. Maybe the events are kind of happening to me, but again, what could I do about it? All that different stuff. I slow down. I go, all right. Well, also, I'm super high and I don't want to do anything. So let's get some Pop-Tarts. Let's throw a new girl and let's chill. You know what I mean?
Does it kind of help you create kind of a brain palace, I guess, in a certain way? Be all right, let's start here. Because you talked about being a dreamer.
Right.
I'm going A to Z almost. Does it kind of fill in B, C, D for you a little bit more?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because and that, I love how you said that too, because recently, I would say probably this year, I really started experimenting with this, which is getting high when I write almost every time. And really not doing it to it's down and Hemingway needed to drink. No, just a little toke, right? To one, shut off that thinking brain that's doing, and again, it's not like it's perfect. I go down the social rabbit hole every time I sit down and silently start writing on a piece of paper, but also I have to look at it not it turns it off, but it just kind of fades it out, right? Okay. It's dialing down the volume, which is great. And then, like I said, it makes you focus on your focus. And for me, I just think I'm at my best when I'm at a coffee shop. I'm thinking about, what's the coolest alien fight sequence I can possibly write right now. Yeah. And then I'm high enough that I can push all the other stuff out. And I'm high enough that I can go, oh, wait, that would be dope. And then I just let myself start going down that rabbit hole, which again, I can definitely write while sober. Yeah, I've written most things while I'm sober. But what I've noticed is I almost my ability to
turn off the editor a little bit, or
and it turns on the director in a way where I can watch the show that I'd hope to write, or I can see how this wouldn't work. I'd be oh yeah,
that's what you should do if you're writing.
That's what it should be,
It's your job. I think there's a old joke. It might be Mike Birbiglia or something like that. Where it's reading. No, it was a local comic. But it was talking about 50 Shades of Grey. Where one of the lines was and then something happened. He's well, you're the writer. You should write what that something is.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? Because so much of it, to that writing point, is how much is this going to get used? Is it not? It's well, if you're really a writer, it doesn't matter how much it gets used. You need to see it. The only thing that's important as the writer is that you see this clearly, right? You see, for example, I have no idea how I'm going to get this done, but my big goal, I'm going to write a graphic novel. It's happening. It's in the works, or at least my part of it is, right? I need to find somebody that can draw, but we're working on it, right?
There's plenty of people.
Exactly. Like, and that's the thing is if it's a cool enough idea too, like I'll pay people, whatever, but like also if it's a cool enough idea, I'd like a collaborator on it, right? And right now it's just, this is an idea that I've been sitting on for 10 years that I'm like, I just need it out of here. You know, like I've been thinking about it and going, but the beauty of that, why I love it so much and why I'm like, I can't wait anymore, is that it's cooked. Like the baby has grown within the womb, right? The bread has risen. Like the idea is there. It's time to get it out before it's overdone, before it's overthought. But also within that, it took 10 years of getting like really specific and like changing it 10 times and like fundamentally flipping who's the main character and what their goal is, blah, 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 all that different stuff. But you have to go through all that, right? I used to think of that as like a waste of time. I used to go like, oh, I'm not getting to the thing. And I'm like, no, you are. Process, you're weeding out the garden, right? You're taking out the shit that doesn't work. But if you didn't see the shit that doesn't work, then you're going to put it in there and it's not going to work, right? I thought of it this weekend, so it's a very raw idea. But as a writer, I'm trying to like go through 5 tests, right? Like there's senses, right? So like the smell test, which I always handwrite, right? And then I'll type it into the computer. And that's like, you know, normally for me, that was just like 2 drafts, and normally it doesn't change very much. And I call that the smell test because normally I change like 10% of it. Like I'm like, oh, that's worded terribly, or oh, that joke stinks. Here's a better one, or I don't know, you know, oh, I don't need this scene. I really don't. Like it'll be just those basic tests. Like if it smells weird, get it out, right? And then you go into like the, you know, sight test, or like you the sight test where you know, actually do the redlining and you get into it and you tear it up a little bit and you go, does this look good? Does this look like what I want it to be? You know, is it structured the way, blah, because I like writing television, as you know, and that's what I like and am trying to break out of a little bit is the structure of it. There's a beautiful structure to TV, but also the best TV shows break that structure while staying very true to it, which I think is true to like mythology even. Like it's something that creators have always done, right? And I like, so does it look good? Is it there? Okay, that's interesting. And then you go to, you know, you hear it, right? You get a table read and you go like, oh, okay, like these people can make this sound pretty good. The words don't sound terrible. That's great. And then you do, what are the other ones? Feel, sight, I don't know. You do a bunch of tests, right? You edited a bunch. You go through, you get all that, like you piece it together. And then you realize you look at the box full of, you know, 500 pages that don't mean anything that you should just use as fire kindling, right? But you're like, shit, like this is the evolution chart you see at the museum, right? You can see it growing and developing, and I've gotten much better because I've just started doing it, right? Because when I smoke and I start writing, I forget about feeling like this is a waste of time, and I just do it because I'm like, if I want to do this, if I want to be a professional, then ideally I'm just doing this all day, right? So what does that feel like? And I just started playing with that feel, and I was like, oh, this is how you find a process. This is how you find a way to make this make sense to you. And again, going back to pot, I don't think I would have allowed myself to get there, just like I don't think I would have allowed myself to try improv if I didn't have the bad trip. If I didn't just, again, slow down and just go like, listen, man, like I've at least heard Joe Rogan say, I don't know if it's his quote, but he always says, be the hero of your own movie, right? And when you start thinking about it like that, you're like, oh yeah, like I'm in control of this to a certain extent, right? So why focus on all the things that are bad that are happening to me and then continue to either let them happen or best case, just do nothing, right? Or just go like, bad things are going to happen. They're going to be what they're going to be. Ideally, if I become a comedian, they'll be great stories. And in the meanwhile, I'm just going to put my head down and get this done, right? Whatever get this done means, right? Whether it's
like every project you get done is a stepping stone.
Right. Exactly.
And I think when you were talking about that monster, like, you know, that hierarchy of needs we already met, right? There's that bear. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that bear is just an internal bear. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like that bear is stopping me from writing. Or
almost always is.
And once you kill that, you're like, every project I do is a dagger in that, you know?
Yeah.
It's a long defeat.
It is. I love mythology and this overarching circle.
Joseph Campbell.
Dude, Hero with 1,000 Faces, you know? I tried to get plastic surgery to look like I had 1,000 faces, and they said, that will kill you. No, it's, I rambled there for a little bit, but yeah.
Dude, I think it's interesting when you talk about be the hero of your own story, too, because I think if you're talking from a writing perspective, too, it's like, depending on your personality profile, too.
Yeah,
You know what I mean, I always think, like, stuff like that within, like, when we talk anti-heroes and stuff, too, which is kind of you know, you can be terrifically narcissistic.
Yes.
Like the hero of my own story. Why isn't everyone helping me get to my goal?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Versus a hero who's like, I'm helping everyone meet their goals.
Right.
Or, you know, and I think those are two different kinds of heroes.
Yeah, and I think, and what I love about myths too is they typically those stories seem to repeat themselves. And what's great is the people never learn, right? Like and why I like old myths is there's more old myths about people fucking up than there are about people doing good, right? Which again, I like modern religion, and a lot of it is about like doing the right thing. There's obviously a lot of tragedy, and so much of it's built on that.
Redemption, you know, stuff we kind of take for granted, forgiveness,
right?
Even just how to treat travelers. You know, I mean, like in a lot of Greek theater was like, how do we treat people who visit us?
Totally, yeah.
You know, what is the rule of hospitality? Adultery, all these things.
Right.
Fate.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Fate.
Oedipus is one of those, like, when you're a kid, you're like, do we really have to read a play about a guy doing his mom?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it just goes above your head. But
It
I
does.
think later on, you're like, oh, this is all about like fate, how defeating destiny. How do we do that? You know?
Yeah, life is Hamlet, man. It's fucking the uncle
Hamlet
killing
is-
the dad, and then you got to kill the uncle and
When
claim.
somebody told me that was the Lion King, it changed my perspective on it.
It's so many
I was a
things.
kid.
The Lion King is based on Hamlet, which is based on a story about a guy named Amleth from Norse mythology, the Northman, which is that story. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Everybody needs to buy it because it didn't do very well at the box office.
Skarsgård is built like a freaking brick shit house.
It's fucking traps, dude. I was like, dude, that's not healthy, but it's awesome. Like, you are gonna need surgery, but damn, you look like a fucking human grizzly. Like, it's good for him, you know.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, what was I talking? Oh, and then that's based on. Well, I don't know if it's based on, but it's essentially the story of Horus and Set, which is the oldest. Well, not the oldest, but one of the oldest ancient Egyptian myths. It's the same thing. Uncle kills dad. Son is raised to essentially avenge his father, takes the throne, but there's complications within taking the throne because that's the thing. And that's why, like, a good movie should... I always say nowadays, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how, right? Like, there's certain things I want to see. Like, some people get mad about fan service and stuff like that. But I'm like... Bad fan service is just predictability, right? It's just something that you're like, you see it coming and then it happens and you're like, well, that was cool, but like, you know, I kind of saw that versus like, okay, you know it's coming, right? But then when they hit you with the way that they bring it in, right, is so surprising and interesting, right? Like all four of those are time-old stories, whether it be like Omelet's probably the least known, but now The Northman is this movie and people are seeing it and understanding it and they're going, oh, it's kind of like Hamlet. It's like, no, Hamlet's kind of like this. And then it's kind of like you look back at ancient Egypt and then you start piecing all that shit together. You're like, okay, that's ancient Egypt. That's, you know, Norse mythology, so like right around Christ's time. That is then Shakespeare, which is the Renaissance. And then that's 1993 with, James Earl Jones and Jeremy Irons and all these, and it's like we're saying the same shit over and over and over and over and over
the
again.
Devil's advocate is Marlowe.
Exactly, exactly. And I don't know if we're supposed to learn from it in a way, right? Because like it's been,
I think it always puts
5,000
in
years.
perspective. I mean, we're not. I always think like we're not computers. We
yes,
start life fresh, and you have to learn these human lessons like yourself. You know, and you want to think we're exact copies, but we're not. We're like, oh man, I'm doing like. There's that element of like, man, I'm doing the same thing my parents did.
Yep.
The same f ups, and they're telling you not to do it.
Always, yeah.
Experience, but you got to learn yourself. You know?
Right. Yeah.
Partially, like just drinking too much alcohol. There's one.
Yep. Always. I mean, you got to put your hand on the stove to learn it's hot. You know, like that's the only way. Because if people keep right, if people keep telling you it's hot, you're gonna be like, what is hot? Like I don't know. You seem to really care about that a lot, so I want to experience hot. And you're like, fuck. Like it's
looking up at your parents. Are hot.
Yeah,
hot.
Hot sounds good, you know.
Cold?
Hot is good.
I know what cold is.
You know, exactly. And I don't usually like cold.
Some oddities, man. Oddities.
Life is oddities, man. The more you embrace the oddities, the more fun it is, you know.
So I had one last thing I wanted to talk to you about.
Please.
Because I know you guys on DMT, big movie
Love the
podcast.
movies,
They do. You guys do 2 podcasts a week, correct? So it's one is a review, correct? And then the other's just talking about everything the week of.
Exactly. Just like shooting the shit, you know, being being people. Yeah.
So you guys have gone in depth with stuff. What do you think for you this past year has been the best movie you've seen?
In like the full year or just 2022?
Yeah, I guess we'll go 2022. This year so far, yeah.
Okay, then that takes the original answer. Let's see, what have we done? I just did the Chip and Dale movie, which Sam suggested that, and I was like, all right. And then I woke up Sunday morning, and my first thought was, oh, fuck, I gotta watch Chip and Dale. But it was good. It was really, really good. I definitely, really it was super fun. John Mulaney and Andy Samberg are fantastic. But would I say that's the best one of the year? No. Man, I did love The Northman. I love The Northman a lot, but that's just, I love, again, that time period, that culture, that they got it so right. You know, everybody's like, oh, I hate this movie because you have to have a degree in like Norse mythology, and I'm like, well, I kind of do, but also, who cares? Just like go with it. Like it doesn't matter who Freyr is. Just know that Freyr is the god they're praying to, and that's the most important part of it, right? Like you don't have to understand it. Go with the journey of Amleth. That's why that movie was so great. It was a hero's journey. Anything that focuses on the hero, right? And again, it doesn't have to stay with the hero per se the whole movie, though I think that one does. I think it's with Skarsgård for pretty much the entire time he's an adult, and obviously him as a kid. I don't think the camera ever leaves that character, which I love. But best movie of the year. Let me go back.
I'm also curious, like you had another answer for the full year.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that one as well.
Yeah, I'm just digging. I'm trying to remember what's come out. It's so weird, right? Because it feels like 2022 just started, and yet we're halfway through it.
I always feel like there's something, like it'll stick with you.
Yeah.
You know, and I think for that same reason, like this calendar year, that Nicolas Cage one,
I gotta see it.
Talent.
Gotta see it.
I don't think I've laughed. I mean, just being in a theater again, laughing out loud like that.
Yeah.
Was so fun.
I
mean, just recently seeing Top Gun as well.
Top Gun was great.
And I was with my family, and growing up, my dad just idolizing and quoting that damn movie all the time. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
brilliant freaking movie, but
incredible,
it was awesome. But
I saw it in Dolby too, which if you get the opportunity to see in Dolby, that's what you got to do.
Tom Cruise, I think, is one of the most intense actors of our generation,
to say the least,
maybe of all time.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean. And people that love Tom, like you think like people love Dwayne Johnson. They do. They buy his stuff. But like when I don't know if it happened. It probably happened in your theater where Tom Cruise comes on before the movie. And it's like, we use real planes, real G's. People erupted. Like, I mean, the theater was, oh, we love you, Tom. You know, it's crazy. I'm like, whoo. I mean, I get it. But also, this guy elicits emotions out of people.
It's
for
crazy.
Sure.
I think so much of like older generations and like our generation too, with like when we think of like movie stars,
right?
Like for me at least, like I've had this conversation where I feel like in the future I don't see movie stars really having the same sway or power.
Totally, yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but it's like, dude, Tom Cruise for me is like that last kind of movie star.
Because now movie stars are like influencers. Yeah. Like Dwayne Johnson is way more than just a movie star. You know, he makes clothes. He's a fitness guy, whatever. John Cena. Well, I don't know why I thought of John Cena, but I mean, he's getting to be huge, right? He's in a ton of movies, but he's also a former wrestler. Like everybody's got like that extra. Like everybody's either like a musician too, or whatever. Like Tom Cruise is not even, I wouldn't say the last, but definitely the definition of a movie star, I think. Again, because he's like what, 5, 6, whatever. He's all the things you would think Hollywood would reject about this guy. He has not only overcome, he has redefined the industry. And you can say what you will about the Scientology part of it. It's obviously a different conversation, but
he works his ass off. I will say that.
There's no doubt.
It shows.
There's no doubt he cares and he works his ass off. That's all you could ask for out of people, you know. But I would say best movie of 2022. I figured it out. I knew what it was. I just had to do a build up.
Okay.
Obviously, it was Morbius. Obviously, Jared Leto as Morbius.
So full of shit.
Again, redefines what a movie is. Tom Cruise is great, whatever. Top Gun, planes. But when Morbius's fangs came out for the first time and Jared Leto went, dude, I was like, I don't need to see another movie. I'm done. I'm done. When they greenlit a sequel, I was like, all right, Hollywood knows what it's doing. I don't got to say anymore. So as long as we keep making Morbiuses,
Okay.
I have faith in humanity.
Well, you heard that here, guys. Morbius was the movie of the year. Mm-hmm. So
Jared Leto, he's going to get a...
That's going to be the tagline for this podcast.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be. Morbius, the movie of the year, presented by Veriheal.
Get high and watch Morbius. I guarantee you.
That would be really enjoyable. You know, I feel like you watch Blade and then Morbius.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
There
You
you
get a
go.
little back-to-back. But you got to watch Morbius first because you need to remember what a vampire movie should be. Okay. That's what Morbius is.
I feel like if you watch Jared Leto's film catalog, it's kind of bonkers.
I've been watching We Crashed with my mom a little bit about WeWork, and he is basically just Tommy Wiseau. Like, he's just playing Tommy Wiseau from The Room.
Anybody who does that kind of accent immediately, like, I think there was another movie where my fiance was like, dude, that sounds like the guy from The Room.
Right.
It was Inventing Anna. That's what it was. Yeah. So
was it Anna that she's talking? Hold on.
like, you look so poor.
It looks so poor.
looks
I'm
so
trying
poor.
to redefine the art industry.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm so poor. Like the whole time.
I'm trying to change the world.
Like this girl, like if her and Tommy Wiseau had a talk, dude, it'd be like, you know, like, oh hi Mark. Oh, you look so poor, Mark.
So
oh
poor.
hi.
Why are my credit cards declining?
Oh, I did not hit her. I did not.
My dad's wire transfer will come through soon. I promise. We're going to another hotel.
It's bonkers, dude.
I love getting into Anna's accent. I don't know why. It's
That
so
one,
fun.
I think, with like her and the Tinder Swindler. The Tinder Swindler was another one this year that just stuck with me.
Yeah.
Dude, how do you fucking just create an industry? Or like you're just like, how do you pay your bills? Like, you're not gonna believe this.
Hit play.
So many enemies.
Dude, and then the other one, I just love that actor that plays Anna, and she's Ruth in Ozark, you know, and I go, God damn you, Marty Bird! I will kill you, Marty Bird!
Clutch.
Can't help it. I gotta do, what's her name, Jennifer Gardner? No, that's a different person.
Jennifer Gardner?
No, what's her name? I don't remember.
Give me a character. We'll figure it out. This is like the 6 Degrees.
It's Ruth. What's Ruth's actor's name? Anna's Julia Gardner.
Julia Garner.
That's the one. I was like, I know it's a J Gardner, but I was thinking
Julia Child.
There we go.
All right, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming in. We're gonna have you more.
Love it.
We love
hey,
having
get me
you
in here, man.
You know, the Veriheal. You know, be on the lookout for Jack with DMT podcast. Also, one of the voices on The Dads, a comedy album, sequel coming soon. Follow him at Silverback Sasquatch. You are doing a ton of stuff coming out recently, too. What was the podcast you guys just dropped, episode?
We did 3 years. I think 2 weeks ago was our 3-year anniversary. I think we're coming up on like 60 episodes of reviews. So it's like, we got about 200 plus episodes if you really enjoy Sam and I's voices, which...
If you guys like
Tell
movies,
me why.
If you guys like movies, check that podcast out for sure.
Yep.
Like I said, he's 1/3 of The Dads, voice of Dave Jackson.
Dave Jackson.
So he's an awesome
Strongest
dude.
dad on earth. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Jack, so much, guys.
thank
Hey,
you
if
for
you guys
having me.
listening, be sure to follow us at Veriheal to stay up to date in the latest in cannabis news. Thanks for watching, guys.